Welcome, everyone. We are more than excited about being together today to talk about the greatest gathering tool you can imagine
That's right.
by one of the greatest gatherers in the world. So happy to
Yes,
be
we're
back.
so grateful to have Dustin Dibble with us today. And this man is incredible. And what he will share today is incredible. And we just want to thank him ahead of time for all he does to make General Conference live and other broadcasts. This man is he's the managing director of media operations, the Media Operations Center in the Publishing Services Department of the church. Did I get that right?
Yes, you did.
All right.
And as you're watching, tell us, go ahead, Dustin.
Close enough. It was the manager, not the managing director. That would be funny. But publishing services was what used to be audiovisual, and about 10 years ago they did a reorganization, and they kind of added in a few other pieces like translation and publishing and some other things, and they made what used to be audiovisual. Now it's all publishing, from videos and broadcasts and print, and anything that's published, any messages that are published is our department.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I know there are like 19 events just in 2022.
Oh, there's a lot more private ones than that, right?
Yeah,
all the
a lot more. Yeah, so you have a busy job. And I know you say you're just a cheerleader for all your teams, but you're an amazing manager.
So we would ask, if you're watching, to tell us where you're viewing from, because guess what? This is the man that makes sure all those languages go out and touch you all over the world. So any of you that want to say thanks from a Zulu language in Africa, just tell us. Thanks to this wonderful man and all his wonderful team. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, well, he'll tell us more about his background and exactly what he does, but he's definitely a pioneer in the field, and his wife is amazing. His children, we have actually a little picture here. Let's see if we can get that up. Of his family. There we go. He is married to Brandy, and they have 3 children, Orion, Aurora, and Thea, and 2 dogs.
And Brandy has a PhD in therapy, and she's an amazing person. But besides that, she makes furniture.
She does. And you can find her on Eternal Harvest Decor. So, yeah, and we'd love to have her on, too. She's amazing, so enthusiastic, so creative. And we have also, let's go back here. Okay, so just a little bit more about Dustin. He, in his spare time, whenever that is, he loves to do snowboarding, and he's done that for 3 decades. And he's
passion of life.
Golf for one, and he says he's not good at either, but we know better. Right.
No, there are videos to prove he's really good at snowboarding.
Maybe years ago.
Yes. Yeah. So, Dustin, as we start here, let's talk first about this amazing post that went viral of yours. And we also have, let's see, we have a picture of that. There we go. All right. We know you can't read it, but let's just let Dustin talk about this while we're on here. Let's see if we can do this one. That one. Nope. This one. Nope. Okay, we'll just keep this up for a minute here.
We go.
There we go. Okay.
Now we can see you.
All right. So yeah, I had a spiritual experience working at conference the way that I do, and this was more than a year ago. This was April 2021. And I had this kind of spiritual experience. All of the languages kind of flow through the Media Operations Center that we interpret for General Conference, and we were, kind of cycling through, checking the languages, making sure that we could hear everybody. My team was, and one of my operators paused and said, "Do you hear that?" And I said, "What? Show me." And he pulled it up on the speaker so we could all hear it. He turned it up, and it was the interpreter for it was Sinhala, and they speak that on Sri Lanka. And it was and they were doing it live, and it was like 5 a.m. there, and you could hear the crickets in the background. And it was really kind of, my heart kind of swelled about the importance of these messages. And I wrote a post about that, and the post was about, and I also told this funny story about how, I was with one of my team leads earlier in the year walking around NAB, which is the National Association of Broadcasters. It's a huge convention in Las Vegas. They have the Las Vegas Convention Center, and it's miles and miles and miles of booths, right? And we were walking around, and we were talking, looking for a new piece of equipment, and as we would talk to the people, my team lead, they'd be very proud of their equipment that could handle like 16 or 32 channels of audio. And then when my team lead would say, well, we need something that'll do 96 languages, and they would, they would be like, their brain would melt. And it would, I called it a 1.21 gigawatts moment from back where Dr. Brown says 1.21 gigawatts. They would, sputter. Who does that? And then they would say, the United Nations doesn't do that many, and it can't be done. And we eventually, we found a piece that would work, and we generally have to tweak things and to make them work, but it was such a neat experience. And now in broadcasting circles, the church is kind of famous / notorious for doing a lot of languages. Yeah, there's very few that can compete with us in terms of languages. But
isn't that 96 live?
Well, we do a lot. Some of it's live, some of it's like post-recorded. Eventually gets interpreted to about that many. I think there's a certain subset that it goes out on satellite only, a certain subset that goes out on streaming only. So anyway, it was but yeah, we do a lot of languages, and the post was really fun. It was really interesting. Got thousands of likes and shares, probably seen by hundreds of thousands, and people translated it into several languages. I mean, it got posted on like Cougar Board and stuff. I ended up getting like hundreds of comments, and I got hundreds of direct messages. I got quite a bit of feedback about the broadcast and about the backdrop that they used that year and how it looked like bacon. And that wasn't real. That's not my department. So
well, not everybody gets a viral post,
Yeah, but one thing that struck me was the outpouring of gratitude, love, and prayers. As a crew, we're supposed to be kind of invisible and silent, and our job is supposed to be just be invisible. We don't expect to be noticed or even thought of, right? The symbol for the publishing services department for many years has been the tower that was built for King Benjamin, right? We are the tower, the framework. So we make it so the prophets and apostles can be heard by everyone, right? Or
I love that.
Or the guys in the story, after King Benjamin spoke, and who took the message out to the people who were beyond the reach, who couldn't hear, right? Yeah. That's kind of the symbol for the publishing services department. We are the tower. So, but we are obviously supposed to be in the background. We're not the show. We support the show, right? So a lot of us, I hadn't really heard that, but I would guess that close to 100 people said that they prayed for the crew specifically. And that moved me. It moved us. You don't get to hear that sort of thing very often, and I turned around and told, our department, they had me do a little write-up in the department newsletter, but I said that I hope that we all who work on broadcasting and publishing these messages to the world know that there are many people, praying for our welfare and performance. And that was a testimony builder.
That's so beautiful,
humbling and wonderful.
And I know in one of your messages, somebody quoted, I know they quoted a lot of past prophecies about how today's world would be in broadcasting. And I love this, and maybe because it was said by Elder Matthew Kelly the same year that I was born.
Yes.
That's a long time ago.
We want to talk about 1953.
That's right. But anyway, he was one of the apostles, and he said, one day there will be channels under the control of the church whereby they can direct this message, this witness, unto any nation they desire, and it can be carried through the channels of the air in the very language of the people to whom the message is addressed.
So you're fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, you are.
Isn't that pretty awesome? That's a neat quote.
It is so awesome.
And since then, many prophets have talked about this miracle that they could see and foresee.
Mm-hmm.
And now to have this happening,
Yes.
That's amazing.
So tell us a little bit about behind the scenes. What goes on in your departments, all the teams that work together? And I'm sure nobody until now, when you tell us, most people, I should say, don't understand all that goes on this team, this army.
Even those that work and that are part of the work don't comprehend the scope of what is happening in all the teams. And you give me credit, and that's very, very sweet. But really, it's even my team is just a small cog in the production of General Conference. It is so massive, so many people, and I've been in this position for about 5 years, and even now I find teams and I learn about teams, and I was like, oh, we have someone that does that. I didn't know. And even now, 5 years later, and it's still, because it's, hundreds and hundreds of people, in across several departments of the church, that take it from, the prophet's lips all the way out to the last language, being delivered, via DVD somewhere, right? It's just hundreds of people, and you're sweet to give me a lot of the credit, but there is so many, and even my team. But let me dive in. I digress a little bit. My team, it's called the Media Operations Center. And so, we take it where we work in the conference center, and we kind of are the nerve center where everything comes and make sure it's routed right. And then it gets blasted into, the live streaming on the internet, but not only just the Church of Jesus Christ webpage, but all the channels it goes to, like all the OTT stuff. That stands for over the top. So like Roku and Apple TV.
Oh yeah.
All those, all that stuff. And then you've got, the over-the-air stuff, and our partners with KSL and BYU TV, making sure they have what they need as they broadcast. And then, and you've got, what am I missing? The cable. One of the neat things that's happening over the last couple of years is the church has worked to put conference on other cable networks that exist. Like, I don't know, there's this nationwide cable network called QB, I think, QB TV. Anyway, we put it out. They broadcast it out for us, and that goes into a lot of new homes in the United States and Canada. And then you've got a lot of we kind of send it to other satellite networks that exist and cable networks that exist outside the United States, like in Africa, and that's kind of a new thing that hasn't happened very much. And so a lot of we do like kind of Africa has kind of a different television setup. They kind of do direct. Everyone has their own kind of satellite dish, and they get stuff straight off the off the airwaves straight into their house. A little bit different than the way we do it here in the United States. But anyway, it just goes out from there. And also reporting to me is what the VOD team, and they're the ones that take the conference and chop it up as it happens, right? And this talk becomes a file, and this song by the choir becomes a file, and it gets chopped up and sent out, posted everywhere. So
so fast, it's amazing.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Remarkable. Wow, hard to even comprehend. And I know you've seen a great difference between when you used to work in TV and now working for the church. But you had a story you were going to tell us about, a sweet spiritual experience, to give us a glimpse of some of that difference.
Yes. Well, yeah. Working in TV, it's a roll of the dice to see if you're producing is of good report or praiseworthy, right? Especially when you're starting out. These days, so much of TV and entertainment is not, and even if it's not, straight up evil, it's often totally inane, right? It's just not useful at all. On that side of things, working for the church is a huge perk. And these messages are exactly what the world needs. And that's just in front of the camera. At other TV stations and networks, this behind the scenes can be just as, I don't know what the word is, maybe slimy, maybe it's just doesn't make you feel very good. It's television production is often a bad environment, a lot of anger and stress and language. Yeah. It's a high stress environment. That's what makes it fun, is, the high pressure environment, but also, that gets interpreted by people and internalized. And I used to come home from work totally stressed out. And my wife, and I used to do, when I was at K-Jazz, I did an evening show, and I would have to come home, at like 11 or 12, kids are asleep. And I would not be able to sleep until 1 or 2, because I'd just be totally tired, right? I would need to zone out for a couple hours and de-stress. And that's part of television, but also, you know, the environment sometimes isn't, in some of these places just isn't conducive to the spirit, I guess.
Definitely. That's well put.
Right.
Maybe destructive to the spirit. I don't know.
Right. And that was just such a fresh breath, breath of
air.
Thank you. Gosh. These messages are exactly what the world needs. And that's why we do so many languages, way more than anyone else, so the world can hear them. But it was just so nice. My wife says I kind of became a different person when I started at the church, and the stress level kind of went down. And that's not to say that there's not moments of stress and that there aren't conflicts and things like that, but it is kind of night and day.
Wow. So in 2020, we were having, and you know, you took over your particular.
I lost you. All right.
Oh my goodness, our computer just totally went off. So let's finish up together here. I'm surprised we got back. Oh, this is great. Okay, let's see with this one.
You were in the middle of a question. I don't remember what it was.
What was the question?
It was about your experience you had with President Nelson.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
about the. Turn it up.
Right.
And
So,
about what it's like with COVID and all that stuff. So we'll go back to the COVID thing.
Right. So one kind of spiritual experience that I had, and I think a lot of the crew had, was in 2018. During the this was the first conference in April of 2018 when we sustained President Nelson as the president of the church, and that was really powerful. During the weeks before, church employees had been hearing rumors about different plans that groups had to disrupt the solemn assembly. And I know security was kind of on high alert. And so we as a crew, we were worried, but we were kind of preparing for kind of major disturbances. What happens if someone does this? What happens if someone does this? What do we have to cut away? What do we have to drop the audio? What would we have to do? And so it was really tense, as we started the solemn assembly. But what was so relieving is we heard how quiet it was during the sustaining. And if you remember, I encourage you to go back and watch it because it is really, really spiritual. You could hear a pin drop. And as we went through, if you remember, as we went through every group, seeing them sustain the leadership of the church, seeing them sustain President Nelson, everyone really felt the spirit on the crew as the elders, and then went through the high priests and the Relief Society and the Aaronic priesthood and the young women, and then the entire church sustained President Nelson and the rest of the brethren. And if you remember, there's the great shot of President Nelson, and he had tears in his eyes as each group did so. And I encourage you to go back and watch it if you can. His look was so hard to describe. It was like gratitude, I guess. It was just really amazing. And so now, broadcast folks are generally pretty jaded, even though everyone is a Temple Recommend holding members of the church. We're there to do our jobs first, and be spiritually uplifted if it happens. Generally, we review conference afterward, right? We're really busy making it happen. And what happened was the crew got really emotional, and the director was calling cameras, and you could hear the emotion in his voice as he was calling the show. And everyone it was just really emotional. And that's why seeing the rest of the crew get emotional was so special, just because we're generally jaded types and you don't really see that very often. But that was really, really a kind of a sweet thing. And that, I think that will always stick with me.
Oh, that is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
I'll say.
Oh, goodness. I bet you have a lot of those kinds of experiences over the years that just, they're the frosting on the cake. You're working so hard, but yet those kinds of things happen. And a lot of things that are going to be announced before we ever hear them. So that's pretty cool.
Some earlier than others. Usually they keep it pretty tight lid on things. It was really interesting. I knew that there was going to be a big announcement when they announced 2 Hour Church, and some of us managers that weren't actually doing a lot of things, just kind of supervising, walked out into the main hall when I think it was Elder Cook was announcing the 2 Hour Church, and that was fun to see the audience reaction and watch that happen live. So that was fun.
Oh yeah, that was pretty much a surprise for most of us. And it's been amazing. I just think back on what it was like you already know how old I am, right? But what it was like when we would have to wait for the ensign to come out to read the talks and study them, and how things have changed and how easy it is now to just find what you need. And like you said, reread and study. And, it's just such a blessing to live in this day and age, right?
So partially the COVID situation, and then you've had some people broadcasting from all around the world. And then because of COVID, you started regional broadcast things that, you do other than general conference? I mean, there's so much that you
Face
do.
to face, friend to friend.
Any
all
of that?
Those are real fun, and you know, a lot of the brethren usually would travel for like kind of a priesthood leadership conference or a church leadership conference that they would do was like a stake or a multi-stake thing. They would travel to those usually, and then kind of broadcast it from that building to kind of the surrounding buildings, right? A lot of those, especially during the pandemic, they started doing. I don't know. You've seen a lot of things in the church news about the Zoom rooms that they've built, right, where they have loaded with screens, and so they could see like 100 faces, you know.
Can you imagine?
And my team has a little bit to do with those. They kind of help manage the signal, and sometimes they're there, you know, on the Zoom meeting, you know, muting people, making sure they're muted and everything.
Yeah, we heard about one time when was that, when the broadcast was actually doing a baseball game? Something happened.
That's been years ago.
Years ago.
Switch to the World Series right in the middle of conferences.
So thanks for not letting that kind of thing happen.
Well, things like that still do happen, but not very often.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
I loved what you said about the languages at the end of the trail. I mean, you got 96 languages. Is it worth translating for a handful of saints in Zulu or something? I don't know what language is at the bottom of the list. But,
right. And I'm not in the meetings where they discuss, all right, what languages are we doing? What are we not doing? But I am told, you know, kind of at the bottom of the list. And if you pay really, really close attention and you look at all the materials that the church sends out about conference and languages and stuff, the languages kind of at the very, very bottom are kind of always in a state of flux. Like sometimes they're in, sometimes they're out. And so they're trying to give each language that's kind of a part of that group that's maybe not spoken by a lot of saints a little taste of general conference, right? Oh, we'll do a few sessions in this language and the live languages, right? And there's kind of some rotation there that happens every conference, and
it seemed like you were saying that some people say, "Is it worth it?" And
right,
the brethren say, "It is worth it to reach
right."
the
You know,
world."
and that's why, you know, the broadcasters at to that conference at NAB would look at us like, "Why do you need to do 96 languages? That's so weird. Like, what could be possibly that important?" And you know, I'm sure the brethren look at that, but they think it's worth it to spend the money to make that happen.
Absolutely.
Such a testimony of the importance of the one.
Yes.
That's right.
And sharing these messages all around the world. It's the great gathering to the stakes and all that's been prophesied so many times.
And really on both sides of the veil. I bet they really enjoy conference in heaven.
I don't know what you translate it to,
Right?
But I think they get it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Well, as we close, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us?
No, I think we've covered about everything. It's, you know, I just wanted to reiterate just how many people are involved and how many people are just dedicate their lives. It is you would be amazed. I'm still amazed after 5 years. The number of people working in their little area to make it happen, and yeah, it's amazing. It's fun to be a part of it.
It is. And thank you for being a part of it and for sharing today.
All for this amazing privilege of getting the words of prophets, seers, and revelators to the end of the earth, which is such an absolute miracle. Just like we said. Thanks so much, Dustin.
Thank you, Dustin.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet.
Thanks to everybody.
Thank you. Please share. Bye-bye.